Hi, my name is Romain Nith, and I'm here to present JumpMod, done in collaboration with my colleagues Jacob Serfaty, Sam Shatzkin, Alan Shen, and my advisor Pedro Lopes at the University of Chicago. Here, Alan is wearing our Haptic Backpack. Let me show you what he feels when he jumps with it.
Whoa, it feels like I jumped higher.
So he felt like he jumped higher, but hold on, there were no cables or external structures helping him jump. He also didn't seem to have physically jumped higher either. So how does our backpack, with no means of pushing him higher, actually give him the illusion of jumping higher? Well, let's rewind and take a closer look. As Alan jumped, the backpack moved a 2 kilogram weight upwards. It produces just enough force to feel a vertical momentum, but not enough to make him physically jump higher. And as such, we encourage you to think about this as a perceptual effect more akin to an illusion. By moving the weight up or down at different phases, we can actually achieve 5 different sensations. For example, the sense of jumping higher, but also the sense of being pulled up or down by an external force, such as someone tugging you with a rope, or even the sense of landing with a hard or soft impact on the ground. We integrated these effects into a VR game. Because these effects were completely untethered and ungrounded, they work very well in freely moving VR. Alan here didn't jump high enough and knocked the cow over, so he collects his power up and jumps higher over the next one. Success! Now he's about to jump over a haystack, but the wind will blow him down in mid-jump, creating the sense of being pulled lower. Next, there's a puddle of mud. By jumping into it, he will feel a sense of landing softer. And finally, there's a pumpkin up ahead. Alan will jump on it, crush it, creating the sensation of landing harder. So why did we build this backpack? Well, gesture input, even the full body as you saw with Alan's jumping in VR, has become very popular in the last decades. As such, researchers have been actively closing the loop by adding output sensations to match the input commands. For example, handheld controllers can emulate the feeling of shaking a virtual ice cube in a cup. Hand exoskeleton allow us to render the shape of the virtual cube and manipulate it with our hands. Similarly, electrical muscle stimulation have been used to render the cube's weight in addition to its shape. And other researchers have created shoes to step on these virtual objects. What about jumping? Well, turns out that vertical force feedback is extremely rare in mainstream interactive experiences, because a device capable of moving you would need a lot more power, mass, and battery than all the one that you see on the screen. So let's see how researchers add realism to vertical experiences. Researchers use grounded devices such as motorized pulleys. To suspend the user in midair, they need to have an entire infrastructure dedicated for the device, making it not very portable. Another popular approach is to use powerful propellers to push air away from the user, generating forces. While some devices using this approach are hands-free, others require the need to hold it, which can greatly limit the user's movement. Additionally, most are not powerful enough to lift the users off the ground. But the ones that do require powerful hardware, which comes at the cost of weight. Augmented jumps, for example, weigh 60 kilograms by itself and can only produce a 25 cents reduced gravity. Plus, it creates quite a bit of noise, and which can easily break the immersion. So it is not surprising that researchers have been searching for a smaller way to achieve these vertical effects. For instance, by altering what the user sees in VR, they can create a sense of jumping higher. While these redirected movements are very effective, they only work in VR, and not in all vertical experiences. Moreover, we know that real haptics tends to outperform pseudo-haptics. So, we decided to explore this in a new way. Our approach is to find a force-based illusion that requires a much smaller actuator, and yet still affects someone's sense of jumping. And this is exactly what we did with JumpMod. We implemented our backpack with a motor driving a belt, which moves a 2 kilogram weight, also doubling as our battery, along a linear rail. A belt tensioner ensures a good power transmission from the motor to the weight. We also keep track of the position of the weight with an encoder and limit switch located at both ends of the rail. Finally, everything is being controlled with a microcontroller equipped with Bluetooth and a motor controller. In addition to 2 traditional shoulder straps of a backpack, we further secured JumpMod to the user using a sternal strap and 2 leg straps. To better understand our backpack, we conducted a perceptual study in extreme conditions. Participants could not hear nor feel the motor running. Participants were asked to jump and describe the sensation that they felt. We studied our backpack by actuating at different phases of a jump in different directions. And this is what we found. Even in the most extreme conditions, participants were able to distinguish 5 different effects. Note that some effects can be replicated with different jump stimuli. Now, do we really need JumpMod? Let us compare to the popular visual illusions used in VR. The goal of this study was to understand if realism induced by JumpMod outperforms the one used in visual illusions. So, we designed a VR experience to evaluate exactly this, the same one that you saw at the beginning of the talk. And we found out that immersion is superior with JumpMod compared to the baseline, as well as realism. And this is quite exciting, as it suggested that JumpMod did add value to the experience. And most participants prefer the JumpMod condition, even despite the added weight and sound. So far, I've shown you JumpMod working in a VR game, in which you have to jump in place. Let me show you more advanced experiences, some even go beyond VR. JumpMod can be used as a feedback guidance, for example, learning how to jump rope. This is different from the previous experience, as it does not render forces for the sake of realism, but rather the backpack informs the users when to jump. It can also be used for other VR experiences, emphasizing on exploring large spaces, for example, playing a VR escape room game. Here, Alan is trying to reach for a key stuck on the chandelier right above him, which is out of reach. So he uses this trampoline on the floor to help him jump higher. He knocks the key out of the chandelier, grabs it, and now he's able to escape. Since JumpMod is completely ungrounded, it can be used to play a augmented game of basketball. Here, Shen is trying to defend against Alan and sends a random haptic effect. But it seems like Alan got the jump higher boost and actually managed to score. To conclude, looking back at previous works, these ungrounded devices allow rendering similar types of sensations as JumpMod. However, JumpMod achieves it by using perceptual illusion and hence is able to miniaturize the hardware. As such, in this graph, haptic expressivity versus device size, we can put JumpMod right here. If we continue to populate this graph, we have at the very bottom the handheld controllers using linear resonant actuators. While its vibrations are very high resolution, it does not provide enough force to move an entire limb. On the other side, we have grounded devices using powerful motors to be able to lift the user. We can actually see an exponential curve covering the trend of these devices. But here, with JumpMod, we decrease the device form factor while still keeping the same level of haptic expressivity. In the previous project, we shrunk the overall form factor of a hand exoskeleton by using electrical muscle stimulation as the main actuator and a brake-based exoskeleton, reducing the actual form factor and weight to 68 grams. My research is to argue that there's a way to make devices using perceptual as well as engineering tricks to get more linear trend. This will allow us to enjoy the same level of haptic expressivity but in a much smaller form factor. My mission is to keep populating this plot by designing body scale haptic devices while keeping the form factor at body scale. Body scale haptic is important because it will first enable force feedback in highly mobile VR and AR experiences that can be enjoyed at home, for instance, but also enable completely new interactive domains that we've never seen before. We would be able to carry physical assistants around all day long, such as this finger spelling assistants that are shown at US 2021, or even delivering haptic effects in augmented sports. Today, I show you JumpMod, a haptic backpack that alters users' perceived jump. JumpMod achieves this by moving a weight along the user's back, which causes an inertial force that modulates the user's perception of their own vertical momentum while completely being untethered and hands-free. Thank you for listening. Please check out our paper for more details.